everyone, welcome to our channel, Rebecca, Stu, and the crew. I'm Rebecca, and today we have a new DIY for you guys for spring and Easter home decor from the Dollar Tree. So let's go over the supplies for our first project. Today we'll use one of these Gnome wreath rails, also some paint. We're also going to need some different kinds of ribbon, a cotton tail for the bunny. We're also going to need some paint brushes, some scrapbook paper, and these two little flowers that I pulled off of a craft from last week. We're going to use them this week. Also, these ornaments, we're going to use 2 peeps and an egg. We'll need scissors, razor blade, pencil, paintbrush, Mod Podge, sponge brush, hot glue, and also some string. We're going to use this baker's twine and pearls or beads. So let's get crafty. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint the beard. I'm doing a really light gray color for the background, and then it didn't really look like it was popping all that much off of the background. It looked kind of flat, so we'll end up adding some detail to the beard a little bit here as we get further along. But these new wreath rails are really fun. I've never made one before, and I was really curious to see what it looked like when it was finished, so I decided to go ahead and try and make one myself. As you can see at the bottom, there wasn't a lot of detail for like the shoes. There was just that rounded edge at the top there. So to help guide where I'm going to paint, I just penciled in a pair of shoes. I wasn't really sure how much we were going to be able to see the shoes when the project was finished, but just in case, I wanted to make sure that they looked nice, because I always like to have my projects look completely finished, and I wouldn't want any part of it to look like it had been forgotten. So then for the hat, we're going to do that in a really light shade of pink. I believe it's called ballerina pink, and I just am using like apple barrel paints from Walmart. So once we have that done, I also painted the shoes a light purple and then some flesh tones for the nose and hands. Then for the bunny, I decided to go ahead and just do traditional white for the bunny. First, I was going to use felt and try to cut out the shape of the bunny and make him look kind of fluffy, but then I decided against it. It was kind of hard to get the shape cut just right, and it looked kind of odd, so I decided to go ahead and just paint it. And then, like I said, once I got the whole thing painted, it still looked pretty flat to me. Just one portion kind of blends into the next, so I decided to go ahead and add some details. So like for the bunny, I added pink for the ears, the nose, and the feet. And then I took some light gray and I added shadows where the legs would be. I add a few whiskers, a little bit of gray for the tail, which I end up covering up, and then a dot for the eye. I also take some darker gray and I outline the beard just to help it show up a little bit more. And you can see how much it comes to life when you add just these tiny little details of adding the border. So now for the hat, we're going to take some scrapbook paper, and I just cut out these large circles. And as you can see, I kind of place them so they're hanging off the edge of the hat. That's to make it look like the polka dots are all different sizes. And I just attach those with the Mod Podge, and then we'll flip it over on the back, and we'll just use our razor blade to trim up the excess paper. And if you don't get too close with the razor blade and there's a little bit of paper hanging over the edge, you can sand that off with a sanding block, or you could even use an emery board. And now we have our polka dots for our hat. And now we're going to do the brim of the hat. And I'm taking this rickrack like purple ribbon from Dollar Tree, and I just cut it a little bit larger than I needed it, and used hot glue to put it down. As you can see, I go over the bridge of the nose just a little bit to make it look like the hat is pulled down a little bit further. And then we'll trim off the excess ribbon, or you could fold it over the back and just glue it down in the back. It's really up to you. And now we'll take another piece of ribbon, and we're going to do a collar for the bunny. Again, we're just going to attach it with a tiny little bit of hot glue once we get the sizing right. And then we'll put a little pom-pom for his tail. You can see how much those shadows are really helping the hat and like the rest of the parts to kind of pop up off of the background. So I highly recommend doing the outline or some kind of a shadow. It doesn't have to be very detailed, just literally doing an outline around the pieces are great. And then to add some added detail, I've just used the end of the paintbrush to add little dots in between the polka dots so that I can incorporate all the colors into the hat. Then for the rail part, again, I wasn't sure how much of this we were going to see once it was decorated, since I've never made one of these before. So I went ahead and painted the rail pink because I knew that was a color I was going to use in the ribbon and it would blend in. Then when the whole project was done, I painted the whole back of this black. So now we're going to use the length of the rail to measure our ribbon. And I cut about 10 pieces. I wasn't sure how many bows I was going to need to make to fill in the rail. So I ended up making 4. And it takes a few pieces of each kind of ribbon for each bow. And we cut them all about the same length, except for the pieces that go on top. I cut those just a tad bit shorter, as you'll see here. So then all we're going to do is start layering our bow by making X patterns, and we kind of spread them out a little bit so it ends up being almost like a star by the time you're done. But you want to make sure you just have everything divided between the left and the right so you can get a ribbon or a tie of some sort through the center so that you can tie it off. So I'm going to use my twine right through the middle and just tie this bow together and do a double knot, and then we fluff up the bow. And as you can see, I did dovetail all the ends of the ribbon as well. So now to attach these, I used the twine that I tied the bow together with. I left a longer piece on it so I could just use that to attach these to the rail. So I do one on each corner, the left and the right, and I use the top rail to attach. We're just doing a double knot, and then I fluff the bows up a little bit. And then for the last 2 bows, we're going to put those on the center rail, and we're going to move more towards the middle. So the first 2 I did right up in the corner. The second 2 that we're going to do on that middle row, we're doing a little bit more towards the center. And what's nice is when you're putting these on with the twine, you can actually slide them back and forth and get them in position where you want them to be before you make it more permanent. And to make it more permanent, to make sure they didn't slide around, once I had them where I wanted them to be, I added some hot glue on the back on top of that twine once I cut off the excess. And that helped to hold the bows in place. So now we're going to take these 2 flowers that I pulled off of the craft that we used last week. They're the pieces we used last week to make the tray. And all I'm going to do is paint them. I dipped my paintbrush in 2 different colors of green. As you can see in the little paint cup there, it's side by side. And that helped give it more of a 2-tone look for the leaves. And then we'll just add a darker green and some light green for shadows and little lines on the leaves. And then right in the middle of the stem, I actually just kind of painted in another leaf to make it look like the leaves were all the way around the flower. And then the top portion, I just painted it pink, and I kept painting in like real light shades of yellow and orange to kind of give it some shadows and highlights. And then little leaves at the bottom of the flower. And then once they were dry, we just glued these onto the top rail on either side of our gnome. And of course, you don't have to use these flowers. I just thought it was a cute added touch, and I didn't want these 2 flowers to go to waste since they were, there was nothing wrong with them, and I hate to just throw something away that I can use in a craft project. So now for our ornaments, we're going to trace those out on a piece of scrapbook paper. We have this buffalo plaid from Hobby Lobby in these pastel colors. My cat, of course, helping as usual. And then we just cut these out with our scissors. So I chose to use 2 peeps and 1 Easter egg. And I always cut them out just a tad bit larger than what I need. And then I trim them up once it's attached. That way I don't end up with a piece of paper that's too small and then waste it and have to recut it. And then we sand the edges to get a nice smooth edge, and then cover the whole top with Mod Podge. And these are attached to the ornament with Mod Podge as well. Then we add a piece of ribbon to the neck of the peeps, and a little bit of ribbon to the Easter egg to help decorate it a little bit. And we're gluing that ribbon to the back of the egg just to help pull it around and, make it look finished there. So now we have 3 rectangular pieces of scrapbook paper in white. I just used my pinking shears to cut them. And then we're going to write the words Happy Easter Peeps on the tag. Now I do practice this before I write it. I kind of figure out my spacing and then I make the tags. I don't just freehand these right from the get-go. I always try to figure out the spacing first. So then we're going to add those little dots in the corners and then taking a tiny bit of black chalk paint, like literally a tiny little bit. I wiped most of it off of the paintbrush. We're just going to lightly brush the edges and then over top of the tag. And that kind of gives it a wood grain kind of older look to it. And that's just an added step. You don't really have to do that part. I do like the black around the edges. I feel like it helps it to pop up off of that scrapbook paper for the background when we attach it to the ornaments, but it's not necessary. It's really just personal preference. So we'll let those dry for just a second. And then we can attach them to our ornaments once the Mod Podge is mostly dry. And if it's not dry, it really doesn't matter all that much. It will dry. We add those with hot glue. And then you can seal them with Mod Podge. The reason I'm sealing my whole craft today with Mod Podge is this will be for my porch. And now I decided to add some little more details here to the ornaments. I did a really small leaf and a tiny little flower to the corner of the tag that says Happy and Peeps, and I did them on opposite ends. And then for the egg, I made a really tiny pink bow and I just attach it to the top with hot glue. Now we're taking that twine that we had earlier and the pearls, and we're going to add 8 of the medium pearls to the peeps. And for the egg, I believe I used 12 of the smaller sized pearls from Dollar Tree to fill in the string here. And then all we're going to do is tie the top in a double knot and make sure your string is long enough that you have space to tie these to the rail. And these are going to go on the bottom rail. And of course you have this flipped upside down. So when you're putting it on the rail, make sure you have the words in the correct order. And then we'll fix those with hot glue once we make sure the spacing is correct. And as you can see, I hang them at different levels. This is what the ornaments look like up close. I was trying to help you guys see them a little bit better. And then the whole project finished. I just love how this turned out. And of course, like I said, I painted the whole back of it black. Now for the supplies for our next DIY, we're going to use a large canvas board, these large Main Street wall stickers, and we'll need this bunny just as a template. Also one of these self-adhesive wall tiles, some paint brushes. We'll need some paint, also some hot glue, scissors, a razor blade, a pencil, and some ribbon. We're also going to use the pom-pom for the tail. So let's get crafty. So this is really simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the large flower from the backing, and then I place it in the corner with some of the flower hanging over the edge. This is completely intentional. So we're going to take our razor blade and we're going to cut along the edge to have a really nice straight piece. And then we're going to use those pieces that we cut off to fill it in around the edges of the canvas board. And this is so that we look like we have different flowers of different sizes and levels on the canvas board. So again, we'll do the same thing to the bottom corner, remove the extra sticker part, and we'll place it in different spots along the edges. It only took 2 of the large flowers on that sheet to use or to fill in the spaces at the whole edge of this large 11 by 14 canvas board. And the space that's in the middle is intentional. I wanted that white canvas in the middle to kind of look like you're peeking through the flowers and you see a bunny on the opposite side. So now our bunny, we're going to use this as a template. And at first I didn't realize I could just remove that sticky back. So once I did, it became a lot easier. I just trace around the bunny, and then I'm able to use my razor blade and my scissors to cut this out. So make sure you remove that sticky part. You really don't need it. I didn't realize it would come off all in one piece. So we just made it a lot easier to cut out the bunny. And then I make sure that the sizing is right and it looks good. The tail needed a little bit more work, so I cut a little piece out of there to make it look like it had a little bit more of the right sizing. And then I decided to go ahead and paint this. You can use a paintbrush, but I found that a sponge, a piece of like a bath sponge from Dollar Tree, I buy them and just cut them up in small pieces, worked a lot better to fill in the paint the way that I wanted to paint it. So I'm just taking a white chalk paint and lightly dabbing over top of the bunny because I don't want it completely covered. I actually like seeing a little bit of that silver through the background because I just like the way that that looks. It kind of gives it more of a rustic kind of feel to it. And then once I have the white all done, I let it dry for about a minute or two. And then I went in with a little bit of the black chalk paint, mostly a dry brush, and just paint along the edges a little bit darker than I do the center to give it a nice border so it'll pop up off of the background when we attach it to the canvas board. And then I lightly brush over all the details on the wall tile sticker just to help it to pop a little bit. And then I attach it to the board using hot glue. I give him a satin collar and then a bow for the neck. I did the bow in the X pattern just like I did the bow for the wreath rail with the gnome that we did in the first project. We add the cottontail in the back, and this project is all done. So you have a large Easter 11 by 14 sign, and it just cost a few dollars to make it, and you can leave it out all spring. I just love this project so much. I love it. I wish you guys could see it in person. It looks so much better than the camera shows. So now our supplies for our next craft is a super simple craft. We're going to take this candle, some hot glue, some scissors, paint of your choice. We're also going to use a paintbrush and one of these foam bunnies. We're also going to use some vinyl paper from Dollar Tree of your choice. So let's get crafty. So this is super simple. We're going to take our scissors and we're just going to remove this plastic, kind of like shrink wrap paper that's on the glass votive. It's really not glued down. It is just kind of like those things you put around the eggs and you put in the hot water and it shrinks to the egg. That's basically what is on the outside of the candle. So we're just going to cut some vinyl. I found this blue vinyl with the pink flowers on it at the Dollar Tree. We're going to cut a large rectangle, and then we'll start in the center of the votive and we'll just slowly work our way around on each side. And doing it this way will help because the votive has a little bit of an angle. It's smaller at the bottom than it is at the top, and it'll help get a nice even edge at the bottom. And then you don't get a lot of bubbles or wrinkles around the edges. You'll cut off the excess and then just overlap the vinyl. Now cut some little notches in the top right to the edge of that candle, and that'll help you be able to cut the vinyl around the top a lot easier. And you want it really close to that edge so you don't have any paper sticking up past the top of it. So here's what it looks like rewrapped. Like I said, this is going to be a really easy project. So now we're going to take the tassel off of the lid and a foam bunny. If you can find them without the glitter, I highly recommend them. I just saw them this week, actually yesterday at the Dollar Tree. They have the foam eggs out as well that aren't covered in glitter. Those will actually work a little bit better for this project. So I did have one on hand that I ended up using, and we're just going to go over it with some white paint to help hide like the fact that it's just plain styrofoam, hide those little lines. And then I take the tassel and I just tie it around the bunny's neck, and then we'll attach the bunny to the lid of the candle using hot glue. And that's it. We'll just pop him back onto the candle, and we have his cute little candle for Easter or spring. Like I said, really simple. So now our supplies for our next project. We are going to use this candle holder from Dollar Tree, a large foam bunny. Again, just found those this week. Some Spanish moss. We're also going to need a paintbrush, some paint, And then some small flowers if you choose to add those to yours. Also some twine, hot glue, and scissors. So let's get crafty. So this is another simple craft, but I just love the way it looks so much. We are going to use some chalk paint and completely cover the bunny. Again, it just kind of hides those little like spaces between the styrofoam where they pressed it together. And then we'll let that dry. So while the bunny's drying, we're going to take some antiquing wax or some watered down brown paint. You can use either or, and you're just going to dry brush a little bit of the paint onto the candle. And this is just helping us to age it a little bit and give it more of a farmhouse feel. Once that's dry, you're going to take your Spanish moss and create like a long tube and then start working it into a circle. This helps to kind of knot it all together, and it helps you not to lose so many pieces. We're creating just this round nest-like shape. Then we'll attach it to the candle holder using some hot glue. And to really help this to stay, if you like, some extra hold hairspray is great for keeping the Spanish moss together and keeping it from falling off and flaking off everywhere. So I'm going to take these really small flowers, almost like baby's breath, and cut those off of the stems, and we'll place these flowers all around the outside edge of the nest. And we're just using a little bit of hot glue on the stem to attach these to the Spanish moss. Then add your bunny on top with some hot glue. We added some twine to his neck and the bottom of the candle holder, and added a few more of the small white flowers. And then at the end, I did go in with that dry brush with the antiquing wax, and I added a little bit of that to the details of the bunny, like the edges of his ears, his tail, and around the eye. And that's it. Very simple. This takes about a half an hour to make the whole thing from start to finish, probably less, really just waiting for the bunny to dry. And here's what it looks like all finished. And then the supplies for the last DIY for today, we're going to use a canvas board, also a hair bow from the baby section, some Mod Podge, and a sponge brush. We're also going to use some hot glue and scissors and a window cling. So let's get crafty. This is another really easy craft today. We're using one of the stretched canvas boards, and we're going to just remove the canvas by popping those staples out with a small screwdriver. And then once you get it lifted up a little bit, you can grab it with scissors and pull them right out. Now take the back of the canvas, and you're going to add some Mod Podge to the whole surface, and then add your window cling to the center. I love this bunny so much. I thought it was so cute. I couldn't wait to use it in a craft project. Then we're going to use the leftover Easter eggs. I used some of these window clings in a different project we did a week or so ago. So I had these spare parts I wanted to use. So we add the Easter eggs, figure out where we want our frame to be. I didn't want to lose the ears, so I decided to go ahead and lose the feet a little bit, just because the bunny's larger than the frame. So once I figure out where I want my frame to be, I just attach that using some hot glue. Then you can use a rotary cutter, scissors, or a razor blade to remove the excess canvas from around the edges, since it's a little bit larger and we're doing the reverse canvas look. And then we're just going to attach this little hair bow from the baby section, and you can add some hot glue to help keep it on the edge. And I was going to add some more to this. I wanted to add flowers, but then I really just kind of like the simplicity of it, so I left it as is. I think it looks really cute like this. And these are all of our projects for today. I hope you enjoy learning how to make all these different bunny projects with this and our little gnome, of course. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget we do Dollar Tree hauls and walkthrough videos on Tuesdays and Fridays, and DIY videos every single Thursday. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And here are some other videos from our channel you might also enjoy. Have a great day, everyone.